name's Bronwyn Machin, I'm the Mayor, and we have all 7 councillors here, and so I'm about to start the proceedings. And to do that, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Jarrah country, of which the members and elders of the Jarrah community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. So, as I said, all present, there's no apologies. Councillors, is there a declaration of interest or a conflict of interest? There being none. Thank you very much everyone for being here. It's really good to see this interest in our budget and what we should be doing and working with you in the community to deliver the best we can with what we have. So it's really great to hear that. We're about to suspend standing orders, and I will invite people to come up and speak to us. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to us. Then I'll ask councillors whether they have any questions, just to seek clarification. As councillors, we've all had copies of your submissions. Thank you very much for those. They were really good. And we've all had a chance to read it, and we've done a bit of consideration about that, and we're really interested in hearing more of what you're saying. So we look forward very much to hearing you. So councillors, can I suspend standing, motion to suspend standing orders? Councillor Petrusma and Councillor Nemo, thank you. I'll call you up in order, and I'm afraid the first person I want to call, I'm going to stumble over the name. So I've got Anne Markowitz.
That's all right, that's close enough.
Thank you. After Anne, I'll call on Joyce, and then Mr. Shadow, sorry, Ms. Sanders, Mr. Shadow, Mr. Campbell. I'm not sure that we have someone from cycling and walking, and Dr. Norma Gray, is she here? Thank you. Thank you for coming in. So 3 minutes, and sorry.
Friends of Campbell's Creek also asked to speak.
Yes, I see. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Okay, well, my submission is in relation to the Castlemaine, Campbell's Creek and Chewton Flood Management Plan dated 2015. Unfortunately, the budget that was published was already incorrect. It stated that stage 1 was going to be commenced next financial year. Through further consultation with Tanya Goddard, that's not the case. The only thing that's going to happen in the next financial year is scoping. There is no construction. It's a real concern to us who live at 2 National School Lane that there is no intention to start any construction in the next financial year. So we've been discussing with Tanya our particular situation, because it's got a bit mixed up with the construction of levies. Our levy is not a construction, it's a repair. It was a levy that was for some reason damaged somewhere along the way before we purchased the property, and it's not a construction, it's a repair job. So we've asked Tanya to consider our particular position at 2 National School Lane for the next financial year with the small amount of money that is available. When we met with Tanya Goddard, Daniel Riley and her, another person whose name has escaped me, they were not aware that 2 National School Lane was a repair. They thought it was a construction. So there's been a real loss of internal organisational history since the predecessor, Matthew Malcolm? Marcus, thank you, Marcus Coonan, thank you, left. He obviously, for whatever reason, hasn't passed on to the new people responsible for the flood management plan situation that we face at 2 National School Lane. So that's really unfortunate. The reason we are lobbying for the levy is that we believe that starting at the bottom of the creek is a really important solution in terms of any flooding that goes forwards. We're right at the bottom, right at the end of the creek, and the levy, when it was in place, provided a really, really effective barrier. It's a gold rush levy. It has been there for, obviously, since the gold rush, and was really effective in stopping flooding further up the line. It's a small investment because it's not a construction, it's a repair, and so we think it's worth investing in that very small sort of repair job. Unfortunately, it's just got lost. It's got lost in organisational history and turnover. and it's got mixed up with the other levies. We're also just generally concerned that the whole levy stuff is being put off and put off and put off. And with climate change, we just don't know what's ahead of us. And you know, a further flood is very likely. And it's a really important priority. It should be a really important priority. We understand there are insufficient funds to do the whole thing, but we feel that some prioritisation in the next financial year should be made, looking at our particular situation in particular as a priority.
Thank you. In fact, you finished dead on the 3 minutes. Well done. Councillors, do I have any questions?
I'm not sure. Might be Phil. This repair versus construction. You have a comment on that, and what is the likely cost? Do we know?
Sorry. At this stage,
we don't have a cost, but we are working, and we have spoken to Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning to look at that issue. We've all had a meeting with the Zhao Zhao Warong because there's a land use agreement that needs to be put in place. So there's a number of approvals that need to be put in place. We are looking at the issue of repair of a previously existing levy versus a new levy to see if there's any flexibility in that process, and we are working through that, but we haven't resolved it as yet.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you very much for presenting. What I need to also add to this is that we're listening today, we're getting clarification, and then we'll have further discussions in the context of our whole budget before it goes to our final budget on June, 12th of June.
Yeah, just one more comment. There is some sort of revision that needs to be made to the budget that's been proposed as well, because it is misleading, stating that stage 1 construction will occur when that's not going to happen. So I think that's something that I think, Phil, you're aware of.
Yes.
Was an error in the budget, and I'm concerned that some people may have objected today if they had known that nothing was going to happen next financial year. But it appears that something is going to happen from the way budget's been written.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thanks. Ms. Sanders. Could you also state, I should have said, whether you're representing any organisation? So that applies to everyone. I'm sorry I didn't say that before, but I think it's fairly clear at this stage. Okay.
Representing tree lovers of Castlemaine and tree huggers as well. Yes, most of my queries about the budget related to trying to plant some trees in the CBD. So in item 2.2, other initiatives, an additional $120,000 for tree management and maintenance for both street trees and the Botanic Gardens. I needed to find out if this management might include replacement of trees long lost in Barker Street. And if trees are being replaced in Barker Street above Templeton, as they have been in the press, should not the priority for replacement have been in the blocks below Templeton Street, where trees were removed and not replaced more than 5 years ago? 2.3, our economy services, building services, compliance. There's a drop in budgeted funds, which is worrying when considering the difficulties in streetscape and signage control as in the Hargrave Street precinct. So I'm worried about compliance in the CBD. And 2.3, our economy major initiatives, $270,000 for streetscape design and construction work. But it appears to only be in the smaller towns across the Shire when Castlemaine's historic market square needs urgent attention, especially in Hargrave Street. Year after year, the smaller Shire towns continue to attract funding for streetscape works, but Castlemaine is always neglected for some reason. The Castlemaine Commercial Centre study of 2012 listed Action 6 as to provide planning and design advice to retail and commercial development, And we've been waiting 7 years for this, particularly in the Hargraves precinct. Grants 4.1.4. There appear to be no grants made available for Castlemaine streetscape improvement and tree planting, despite money already being expended in years past for consultants and planning. Has any grant been sought for this purpose? In 2015, a petition of 197 residents asked for the 2016 budget to include work on the Castlemaine streetscape strategy, and we are still waiting for that. 4.5.3, works carried forward, footpaths and cycleways, Castlemaine CBD streetscape. Does this mean that council has 108,000 remaining for footpaths and cycle paths? Is that me?
Yes, that is you.
Okay, I just simply wonder, you know, why all the other townships can get money and we can't. Do we need more representatives for Castlemaine and not to all the other places? And yeah, that's the main issue.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions? No, thank you very much.
Do we get answers?
Yeah, it's a good question, and thank you for asking that question. After we've had a chance to, we're hearing you, we're hearing what's important to you. After we've had a chance to go over them when we're looking at the whole budget again, so we've set aside this time to listen to understand. Then next week we go over the whole thing again and we say, okay, where in all our priorities, and bear in mind we make decisions for the whole Shire, not for our wards. We then will come back and there will be a response to all the submissions. There will be, I'm fairly certain, a letter to all. But thank you for asking that question. I should have made it clearer. Mr. Shalhoub, do you wish to?
Which of the submissions am I speaking to?
Good question. Which ones do you wish? We've got you down as speaking to the LGBTIQ one.
We'll do that first. Yeah. And it's okay if filters come up?
Yeah, it's certainly okay, but you don't get 6 minutes.
No.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Shireen Clow, and I'm representing the LGBTIQ plus roundtable that exists within council. On behalf of the roundtable, we'd like to request that provision be considered and created in the 2019-2020 budget to facilitate the expansion of the Mondo Lounge youth space to deliver and include an LGBTIQ plus specific space where young people can meet with friends after school in a safe, supervised and supportive environment on a weekly basis. We think it meets your budget in the following way. In your plans of our people, the strategic objectives, and it meets in the following ways: that socially connected, safe and inclusive communities, combating isolation and creating social connections and providing safe, supervised, supportive, inclusive space. Also, that local services that support the needs of our community is part of your plan, and it certainly does that with the creation of a local support group that meets the needs of these youth who are currently not engaged or are travelling outside the Shire for other educational purposes, because the high school does have a support group, but we have 300 students going other directions each day that don't have access to that. And you already do a fantastic job with the Mondo Lounge and YAG and Freezer, and we think this would be a really good extension of those services. Because unfortunately, LGBTIQ youth are 5 times more likely to try and commit suicide. So this small allocation in budget can really save some lives, and I think that the councillors can make a decision that will have a huge impact, that really is an extension of what you're already doing and the great work you're already doing. Do you want to add to that, Martin?
I think that's perfect. Just one more thing. For a child that is identifying as LGBTI at high school or at school, possibly you want to go to such a group at the school, and if there have been difficulties out, being out and open, or if they're having difficulties telling their friends or their family, so this will provide a space for them that is safe outside of school.
Thank you. Well under the 3 minutes. Councillors, do you have any questions? So I know Councillor Lesser and then Councillor Trisma.
Yes, I do have a few questions. It's slightly confusing. I need to get this really clear in my mind. I'm trying to talk to okay, come around this way at the same time. Are you looking for an additional space? Because that's what's, and then if you are looking for additional space, who's going to service that space? So I'm just trying to get a clarification here. It'd help if you can.
That's a good question. We're not asking for additional space. The Castlemaine Community House will provide the space. We already provide the space for the other 3 youth programs. So the space is the same space, just on a different night. And we will provide that.
Right, so you don't need an additional...
We don't need space. We're looking for funding for a support worker to run the space, I suppose, or to run the program for maybe 3 hours per week.
Right.
So it's not an additional space, it's an additional program.
Because that's not real clear. Because if you're talking about space, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Trisma.
Sorry, just a quick question. I think you may have covered it actually already, but just want to clarify. So what you're requesting then is basically an additional day with a worker, or a worker for an additional day. Now this is for I wasn't sure at first, but I think I've got it. It's exclusively for LGBTQI who are not comfortable to use the space as it's being used now, where it's open to everybody,
That's right.
including people who identify as LGBTQI. But I can understand that they wouldn't be comfortable, so you're seeking an additional day, basically specifically for that group, and I guess friends of that group or people that support them.
That's
Is that,
right.
is that where we're
That's
coming
exactly right. I guess the Mondo Lounge, I know, are a very inclusive group as it is, and we've been told that 50% of the kids that attend Mondo do identify as LGBTIQ currently, but there will be kids that won't go there because it's not specific for them, if that makes sense. They may be scared that the other 50%, there's one person in there that will bully them when they go back to school, or, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. As you can tell, I just got a whispered question. For that roughly 3 hours a week, what do you think the cost will be, and how long do you think it will go on for?
We don't know what the cost would be, but we assume council would, because you deliver Mondo Lounge, so I'm assuming it's the same sort of costing.
So you'd be looking for this to be delivered through council rather than a grant for council to community house to deliver it?
Correct, yeah. So, like Mondo Lounge, council delivers that, it will be in the same style.
Same staff member is what you're saying, Mark?
It could be the same staff member, or it could be someone else. Jodie's fantastic, I think she did a brilliant job of it.
And also we want to consult with the youth, which we've talked about for the next round table, to see what they want, so they can tell us exactly how this space will look and what they need.
Speaking of which, are some of the youth this affects directly happy to come and speak to council and put their, because we'd love to hear direct from the youth themselves as to what it is,
Yeah.
that if they're comfortable to do so, that is.
I suspect through the round table might be a nice way of doing that.
Yes, I do too, because we are going to open that up, the next round table, to the youth to give us feedback, so if you'd like to come along to that, that would be a good way of getting everyone at the same place.
Ongoing or a trial, do you think?
Both? Look, I think trial first, of course. You know, if we run that and no one turns up, then it tells you what's happening.
That's right.
But we know that it does work in other shires, and
Cobble Shire has been running one for years, and I know the Mayor and Christine saw two youths speak in Dalesford not long ago and talked about how it changed and if not saved their lives, that youth space. So we could really base it on what Mayors at Hobart is already doing.
So if we were to look at a trial, what would be a projected time, like a 3-month trial, if that was to be the case?
Is that normally what council would do? I think 3 months sounds like a good start.
Maybe, perhaps longer than that to give the youth a chance to find the space and feel comfortable to come. These are really marginalised kids that are quite outside the system sometimes and are not in the education system, so we need to be able to reach them first to get them in, I think.
Councillor Nina.
Not so much a question as a comment. I went looking for Martin the other day. I managed to walk through your Rondo Lounge day. What a buzz! The kids were having a great time.
That's what we want.
I think there's about 20 kids that often go there, and they love it.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
While I'm standing, do you want me to speak about the second submission?
Okay, so the senior citizen submission,
Yeah.
you get 3 minutes for that.
Shall I hand this over?
Thanks.
So, Martin Shattuck from the Castlemaine Community House, representing the Castlemaine Community House. We are delighted to have been delivering the Senior Citizens Festival for the last 2 years, and I signed the Memorandum of Understanding this morning to deliver it for another year. I think that the councillors here and the seniors in this community would say that it's been run beautifully over the last few years, and it's been a fantastically successful festival since the community house has been running it, and certainly before that. The submission from the community house is that council has funded us at $3,500 the first year, and $4,000 last year, and $4,000 again this year. But it costs us close to $6,000 to deliver the festival each year. So what we are asking for is, rather than a $4,000 funding to deliver this festival, we're asking for $6,000, so a $2,000 increase. That's well under 3 minutes.
Thank you, and I understand that that MOU does include that increased amount.
No, it's set at 4,000, the MOU.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Not a question, but I was on the committee for the last Seniors Festival, and it's a fantastic event. Really, really good event. So sure that we'll do our best to support it, hopefully.
Appreciate it.
No promises.
Could I just ask Ms. Knight for a comment on this, please, with regard to the amount available?
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. The original MOU did state $4,000. There has been a revised MOU sent through that does state $6,000.
Oh, what I signed this morning said 4,000.
Correct. So this,
Okay.
that
There's
should
another one.
read 6,000, and that was verbally agreed to a number of months ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
I'll walk away. Thank you.
Thank you. Friends of Campbell's Creek Land Care Group.
So I'm David King from Friends of Campbell's Creek. Many of you will know of us, but for those who don't, we have 72 volunteer members who work along the urban waterways from Woody Ground, from Camp Reserve in the middle of town down to Campbell's Creek Township. And in our work over the last 20 years, we've invested over $1 million worth of one funds and volunteer hours in transforming that creek corridor to what it is today. Our members have also contributed strongly to the development of the walking and cycling strategy, just about expired, the flood management plan, Castlemaine Urban Waterways Management Plan, and members individually have contributed to the Campbell's Creek Community Plan, so that's a bit of background. On the council budget, nothing controversial here actually. We've said in our submission that we'd like to congratulate council on the draft budget and the investment in the future. We support the commitment that we see to connected communities, to health and well-being, to managing assets well, clean and green, education, innovation, and we particularly endorse and support the funding proposed for 4 things. And those are firstly, the funding to complete the Campbell's Creek Trail. I'm not telling anyone anything, I think that the urban waterways and trails through them are a massive community asset. We're really lucky to have them. They're an asset environmentally. More and more people we're seeing enjoying them for recreation, improved health and well-being, education and the schools, and some of you will have seen the fun the Bush Kinder Kids have every second week down along the creeks, for connecting communities and safer travel and for attracting visitors. So closing that gap in the trail is a key to attracting more people to use it, driving the full benefit of the council's already big investment in the trails. The waterways and trails are increasingly important for education in neighbouring schools, so I know the schools have ideas of more extended programs once that gap is closed. The second thing is that we support major things. We support funding to review of the walking and cycling strategy to better inform decisions and works. If you think back to 10 years ago and the 2010-2020 strategy, which was the first, it's really delivered big improvements and it has delivered increased walking and cycling in the Shire. I think that's obvious. It is now time for review, though we have an excellent range of walking and cycle trails. They don't connect to each other or reach the centre of Castlemaine, and so prioritising missing links in 3 locations would fix that. So we're looking forward to the strategy addressing those things. Thirdly, funding to commence on-ground works and implement the flood management plan. You'll see that we've read implement in that. It's different from the point that Anne was making. Having worked with the Catchment Management Authority and Council on development of the plan and the detail, it's good to see a start on implementation. We want to see that happen. We also want to work together.
Just your time's up, so can you finish quickly?
Okay, lastly, funding for managing, so yeah, we think it's important to do that. Lastly, funding for managing rural roadside weeds, that's really important, not only in meeting council's obligations as land manager to stop the spread of weeds and lose the gains that we've made and private landowners promoting productivity. We understand that funding for closing the gap depends on winning Commonwealth funding. We'd like to help out with anything that we can on that. And wrapping up, we strongly endorse the budget for the reasons I've given.
Thank you very much, councillors. Any questions? No, and thank you, by the way, for all of that work that your group has done over many years. I just love that trail. It's beautiful. So thank you very much. Do we have anyone here from Cycle Safe? No, so I'm wondering, Dr. Gray, whether you're ready to speak to us. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Norma Gray. I was born in Castlemaine in 1935 to Breen and Burt Island. The Island family have been residents of Castlemaine since the 1800s, and in 1909, 21 and 26, my great-uncle, Councillor Dave Island, served as mayor. Both my grandfather and Dave were active in the cause of building a sustainable and safe community. They were both involved in the construction of the Forest Creek Channel. As a little girl, I cherished their stories. They told me about the magnificent piece of architecture that had been the masterpiece of the council planning to change the natural course of the Forest Creek to allow the town centre to be free from flooding. In the 1940s, we would walk the channel at the end of Urquhart Street and admire the beautiful stone walls, and I especially enjoyed playing stepping stones on the strategically placed sandstone base after we had caught enough yabbies to cook for dinner.
Sorry, can you just hold a moment while we try and say what's causing all that crackling? Do we
I
know?
think you're pressing against the microphone with the play button.
Oh, I might have forgot it with the ball.
Oh.
Sorry.
Please continue. Please continue.
I am now in the twilight years of my life and have returned to my hometown, to retire and reminisce about the wonderful times we had visiting this historical icon of Castlemaine. As I drove past the channel, my dreams were shattered. This magical place had been transformed into a sea of vegetation, poplar trees and blackberries. They have completely changed the dynamics of what the channel was built for. I am unsure who is responsible for this tragedy, but I know that if the authorities had considered the history behind the reason for building the channel and asked the two most important questions, why was this channel built, and how can this channel cope with floodwaters in extreme weather conditions, they would realise that it must be cleared to save the city from flooding. I have walked the banks of this channel and believe that if the council considered returning this icon to its natural beauty and allow the channel to protect the city from flooding, then our forefathers, with their brilliant engineering skills and masterful construction work, would be rewarded. As a researcher and historian, I am ashamed to admit that although my hometown prides itself on preserving history, the most important piece of infrastructure built with a specific purpose that is still relevant today is being overshadowed by bureaucracy and allowed to deteriorate to the stage that it no longer can perform effectively, and the communities and tourists can no longer see the channel walls. After a great deal of consideration as to what action I should take, I decided to place a submission to council to review the condition and purpose of the channel for both the infrastructure and the flood risk factor that should be part of the town planning for 2019 and 2020 budget. I thank you for listening, giving me the opportunity to tell my story and place on record the factual evidence and the importance of the Forest Creek Channel to future generations. Thank you.
Many thanks, councillors. Are there any questions? Councillor Petrusma and Councillor Henderson, will you?
We might be saying the same thing.
Right, Councillor Petrusma.
Thanks, Dr. Gray, for your submission, and it's probably not a question for you, but a question for our staff, our CEO or Director of Infrastructure in relation to, I believe that DELP at some point in time has taken over responsibility of that channel from council. I don't know when, I just confirm that.
Excuse me. We are not the committee management for that land, it is DELP, but we still utilise that channel as a drainage channel, so we have some responsibility for its ongoing maintenance. But we work closely with DELP to try and resolve this, and we've met Dr. Gray on a couple of occasions, and we're progressing those discussions, trying to get to some sort of resolution.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Giselle. Let's get on. Thank you, Dr. Gray, and it was really lovely to hear your reminiscence of your childhood. I have been involved with people, Landcare, Castlemaine Landcare, very concerned about the state of that channel, as you probably know. I've been on a little trip looking at it, a scoping expedition, wondering what could be done, but as you say, bureaucracy has minded. There might be a way in the future for us to do something about it. I remember the question being asked, is it lined with stone at the bottom?
It certainly is.
However, I will tell you that my recollection of the biggest flood that we've had here that I can remember in 2011, 2012, I stood on the bridge on Wheeler Street watching the water flowing down that channel very successfully. It did not flood in the centre of Castlemaine. That channel held and that channel worked. Even though the first 2 years that it was built, it actually failed, didn't it?
Yeah. If you have a look at a marker on the bank down there that someone has put in, the water was actually a metre, a little over a metre above the wall. After reading the feasibility study commissioned by the Landcare people, Ian Rutherford has suggested that there is a metre of silt in that creek. Now, if that was removed, the water would come down level. And I think that this is the problem, that we're actually filling the creek, not fixing the creek. The other issue that I have read in the planning, the Urban Creekway planning, that is now the official document, is that I know that there are large water holes already in it. Yet when I read the statement and what they're going to do, they're going to dump rocks in there to be able to make big ponds or pools. They're already there if we start and look at clearing it. And I'm very concerned that if we don't take some sort of action now and we start letting everybody plant stuff in the creek, we'll have no creek left or no channel left. And you know, I'm a conservative too, and I'm very conscious of the vegetation and the rest of it. I think the Landcare are doing a fantastic job up the other side of Patterson's Bridge. I think they're doing it down here, but not in the channel. And it's a channel
they were not looking to plant it, they were looking to clear it.
Thank you. Can we just...
Thank you.
I really appreciate, I was also amazed by the number of signatures you got, and I thank you very much for that effort too. So I look forward to, I think there are further discussions planned and we will be looking at this. So I don't think we have anyone else to speak. Thank you. Councillors, can I have a motion to resume standing orders? Thank you. Councillor Petrusma, Councillor Neiman, thank you. And basically that means it's the end of the meeting. So thank you to everyone for coming and for those really good submissions. I greatly appreciate them.
Have a look at the recommendation first.
Oh, it's not a recommendation.
To formally